Alright guys, this is going to be the video that's just been gnawing at the bit in me for a couple days. And it could ruffle a few feathers, but you know, that's not the intent, because there's not a person out there that has a thing to prove to me anything. There's not anybody out here watching this that needs to prove anything to their buddies and their cliques or whatnot, or whoever they talk to and stuff. But I'm going to come off kind of insensitive in this, and it's not that I'm being insensitive, it's just that there's just things that I'm viewing as non-issues that seems to be churning with a couple videos and with a few boards on Facebook and stuff like that, and we're all connected. That's the whole thing. It's all connected, and I'm seeing kind of a big picture here. So it's not that I'm going to be insensitive. It's not that anybody's getting targeted. It's that I'm just going to talk like a grown-up to grown-ups is how I feel, and just lay it out there. You know, just a few things on my mind. If you don't want to listen, you don't have to listen. Okay? Not being confrontational, not being dismissive, but come on, you know. But let me talk about comics and bullying for a little bit and stuff, right? Now, I'm not going to be insensitive here and say that getting rude comments and stuff, you know, isn't hurtful. I'm not going to sit here saying, you know, the thumbs down can't be shocking at first. And I'm not going to sit there, but I am going to sit there and I'm going to say that seeing infighting amongst comic book collectors blows my mind, and here's why. Okay, anybody that's watched my channel, anybody that's even dabbled around other channels and stuff, there's people on here that's been collecting comics for a long damn time. Okay, for me, it's reading comics in '77. Actually buying my first comics since 1979, and then realizing that I was really collecting this stuff around 82 or 83. Okay, and as you grow up, and you can tell I was just a kid doing this stuff, right? And the biggest difference between some people getting some hurt feelings and some bullying and some trolling going on with them is that it still is not a face-to-face confrontation. It is still not people that you see every day, like in school or something, that have found out that you like comic books. Okay, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm telling stories like I was back in NAM, like I've been through some big battles and stuff like that. But the whole thing is that like the reason a lot of people are having a problem with comics and this pop culture event going on, that's kind of being mainstream or trendy. Time will tell what it is, if it's going to stick around. And a lot of new people coming into the hobby, which is great and fine, and it needs to be done so this hobby can continue. Common sense will tell you that. But the thing about it is, though, is that when it wasn't cool, you got embarrassed in front of people out of the blue. You had 2 or 3 people in your face, that you have become a target because you have been caught with a handful of comics, walking home from the store or something, or you're out somewhere and you decided to sit in a corner while you eat and you're reading comic books, and there's some guys from school and stuff like that have popped up, and like, what do we have here, right? These are things that really happen. And not only that, but they tried to use these comics to emasculate you and stuff like that. They'll bring it up in front of girls. There's nothing like, about the only time that I really got popped pretty hard one time where it did embarrass me is I was at my locker and I'm talking to a girl, and then out of the blue, I'm completely defenseless, shields are down, no idea that it's coming. 3 guys are sitting there like, hey, you got any comic books to show her? And stuff like that. Doesn't sound too bad, man, but these are people that are in your face. The constant idea of people knowing that you were collecting comics back in the day when they weren't cool or anything like that, it was a tool to use against you. It was a tool to try and embarrass you and stuff. And you have to get a thick skin about it. Or, to me, it wasn't really a harsh problem, but, after seeing some of the videos about people talking about getting bullied or being called losers, and some of the stuff, infighting I've been seeing on some of the Facebook pages and all this stuff like that, it just kind of blows my mind, and it churned up some stuff, brought it back. I didn't even know it until today. As you can tell, I'm kind of, PTSD right now a little bit from it and stuff, right? And back in the day, it was the girls did not like comics. There was nothing more pathetic than seeing a guy try to talk comics to girls, and they'd either smile and laugh if they really liked you, or they would just look at you like you were a freak and stuff, right? That's just the nature of the beast. That's how things were, and you got a tough skin from it and stuff. But what did it prove? And this is where I'm saying that nobody's got anything to prove to me or anybody else out there. You need to look at yourself and be like, what's more important? Okay, something that you like and enjoy, or something that you're going to be embarrassed by and you're going to quit. And that's why there's a lot of people who still don't think the fact that, people have no problem calling themselves nerds or being called geeks and stuff like that. We have been called those when we were doing what we loved with this hobby, when it was comics and stuff, before it was mainstream. Now, here's the two biggest differences today to where a lot of people can't fathom this or get the intensity and the frequency and what it was like to do that back then, right? You got to understand, right? I saw on the YouTube comic book community Facebook page, one kid got accepted, and the first thing he did is said, "You guys were a bunch of losers," right? And everybody piled up on this kid, told him he was a loser and how pathetic he was, and he got on there and stuff. You weren't alone, right? You're with like-minded people who like comics. Back in the day when it was this is a hobby where you went into the store by yourself, or maybe had a friend or two, or and stuff like that. There was not a bunch of us anywhere. You were always outnumbered by the people who made fun of you or got you, or they were coming out of the blue, and it was a face-to-face confrontation. You did not have the support of a lot of people online, in a group on YouTube and stuff to back you up. Okay, you were outnumbered. You were seriously had that feeling of being the outcast because of something like comic books. With me, it never made a difference. I'm like, it's freaking comic books, get a life. I played in bands, I did music, taught art in school and all this stuff. I had all this other stuff. I had plenty of friends and did all this stuff. So, to me, I always thought like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel by throwing the comics at me and stuff. So you did not have the support. You had your friends who would take up for you, but it wasn't because you were into comics. You know what I'm saying? It's because they were your friends, So, and that's the biggest difference. That's why I can't really take a lot of this stuff too serious or be real sensitive to it. I mean, I know it's hurtful and I know it's shocking, but you've got people with like minds that you have found because of comic books to help give you a little bit of support and stuff, and they let you hang in there. But you still, like I said again, you don't have a thing to prove to them. You don't have anything to prove to anybody. You got something to prove to yourself. Are you going to give in and quit, or are you going to whine about it? Are you going to dwell on it, or are you going to move on, rise above, and do this because you love it? All right. I mean, I hate to use the word, but I mean, there's times where I think men should act like men and women act like women, and that's not a slam, that's not a sexist remark, but there's a time where it's got to be toughen up, And the other thing is that like the thing that just blows my mind and why it really bothers me, even though that a lot of this stuff is, I will admit, none of my business, but you don't really have a right to an expectation of privacy because you're making a public video out there with some of the things you're saying. And that's your complete right. That's why I'm not calling out anybody. I'm not really upset with anybody. It's just kind of like the tone that has gone around, from what I'm seeing. And like I said, there's people on the YCC board on Facebook, I know what I'm talking about. Some other videos were the video and stuff like that. But what blows my mind is like you go all this time with a hobby. If you just experience this, it would probably make more sense. But you go through all this time where it's a hobby. I had my brother. Met one or two other people, had a guy named Robbie, and that was it, And then you handed him off to your stepdad, and you would read, and that was it, a small little faction of people who read comics. And then every now and then you would meet somebody at a comic book shop that was just like an hour away, man. There was other people out there reading comics, and you all get together, and it was just a great thing, and then you go on. You had, it was cool to meet people that were into comics with you, and that was the ground level that's going up. So with everybody back then being ostracized, and that was a danger, and you knew it, it kind of being looked down on for reading comic books and stuff, and then you find each other. It makes absolutely no sense to me to see a lot of people having infighting in a community based around a hobby when you would dream of the day where you could be around a bunch of people who are into comics. That's why comic book conventions got so big and would have gone on for so long and stuff. That was that one time a year where you could be around and you could be the comic book geek. Yeah, when you put it that way and you hear about how that hunger and stuff like that, that's why those words like geek, nerd and stuff like that just don't sit well for me and probably a lot of older collectors, But, if you don't become the sea, you sit around and become seasick, So, that's probably why I haven't said too much at all before, right? Things change, time change, and you adapt with it and stuff, right? But then it just reaches a point where there's just certain things you just don't understand, and it's the infighting. The infighting, the comic book snobs, the comic book elitists, pointing, getting names all of a sudden. What does it freaking matter You know, it's all about comics. And there are tons of different comics. It's one of the reasons that it has survived. And maybe it's time to kind of like take a step back and remember what these channels are all about, what started them, and why they got going. The matter how good of friends you make, how bad enemies you make on this, no matter what brought you here, these channels and all these people that subscribe to each other and all the new ones who just popped up on it and stuff like that, it's all because of comics. You know, I'm not trying to put them on a pedestal. I'm not trying to make a shining light come out of my bookcase here and stuff like that. But it just makes no sense for me to see people just, like I've said again, I'm just starting to be a broke record here, man, because like I really cannot comprehend it. I cannot comprehend it. Do things get personal with people? That makes sense. This makes sense. But to be targeting people that have different interests and stuff like that, and to be pointing them out like it's a bad thing, well, you know, when things get so big, and it's happened twice here in this comic book community over the years for you that haven't been around that long, you start seeing history repeat itself. And what happens, there's always one person who seems to be in here for a different agenda than the bottom line of being comics and talking comics and stuff. And then that's a powder keg. You know, that's the if there's a powder keg ready to burst, and this is the spark. That one person can be the spark. You know, and stuff like that. And I've seen it go down twice now, and that's when things get so big, so fast, and then the bubble pops. And there's been 2 or 3 generations of this comic book community that's been going on, you know, and I just recently saw it happen again, and this time I just stepped out, wrote a little remark, I'm gone till I can go to my room and come out with a smile on my face, because I don't have the energy for it. So I think that's what I'm trying to get at, man. This stuff just makes no sense. We're here for the comics, and this is all I'm going to say about it. Do I expect to lose subscribers? Probably. Do I expect a lot of thumbs down? Probably. But, you know, my channel, my views, and I just really hope everybody can kind of chill out and think about, you know, is there a real issue with what you're having a problem with? You know, does it really have anything to do with comics or what? You know, so there you go. Thanks for listening.